Thank you. My name is Alison Weihe, and I'm a speaker, a writer, a mindset coach, but my background is that of an entrepreneur. So I try and speak and write about the human face of entrepreneurship. Not the theory, not the systems, not the processes, the humanity behind being the entrepreneurial roller coaster ride that I've ridden for 25 years, and the joy and the lessons it's brought me in my life. I'm so honored to be here on Gold because I believe gold lives my values. The reason why I get out of bed every morning, wanting to make a difference in the world, wanting to be a change maker, wanting to create deep conversations that heal the anguish in the world, one conversation at a time. That's my mission. And I think that's yours. I grew up in Cape Town, and I grew up in a relatively privileged area. But I was aware that when I grew up and when I was young, we lived in a small 3-bedroomed home. There were bigger houses all around us, but I became aware of how hard my father worked in order to add on a tiny bit to the house after a few years, and then a bit more, and then a bit more. And he had so much drive and passion to achieve, not only in sport, but in entrepreneurship. And so I saw this enormous drive to grow people, to allow people to believe in themselves. And he was an interesting man in that he was deeply humanitarian. And he would often take me, as a little girl, I remember, going to show movies at orphanages in the Cape Flats when apartheid was still very much in the 1960s, very, very much in place. And it made such an impression on me that he never spoke to anybody about it. He didn't talk to anybody about it. It was just one of the things he did, as well as being involved in Rotary and several other things. But I think he instilled in me a passion for wanting to live deep, to make meaningful connections with people, to grow people, to see other people blossom. And I don't believe it was all about money for him at all. And that's exactly the same with when we founded our company 25 years ago. It was never about money. It was always about being excellent and making a difference. But my greatest joy as an entrepreneur has been growing people. Just seeing people come through the portals of our experience and coming out the other side, a slightly different person, more believing in themselves. So for us, I almost felt like a company was a bit of a finishing school and a starting school. It was the start of a new journey for them. But we always, when people left, we loved to see them go to their next. Yeah. There was an interesting phase. I was at university from 18 till 24, and I became passionate about understanding sociology, what makes societies tick. And I did a lot of research for my honours year on the Cape Flats. And then I got offered the opportunity to work in the Cape Flats for 7 years. So I was actually a trade unionist by background. And that wasn't so popular back then at all. And I think my family were really wondering, the strange errant daughter of theirs, how did she fit in? And in so many ways, when I was younger, I felt like I didn't quite fit in. And yet in working in the Cape Flats for 7 years, I found a deep sense of belonging. And the communities there shaped who I am today. And I will never forget those roots. I wasn't born there, but some of my spirit was born there. And so my sense of how privileged I am is always alive in me, because I've been in houses in Khayelitsha and Manenberg where 23 people share one room. And when you've seen that, it will never leave you. And so I changed from working in really poor areas of Cape Town to working in very, very sophisticated areas in Johannesburg. And it really gave me a sense of life when you see those extremes. And yet in those extremes, people still have such human stress, such human elements that bind us all together, no matter where we come from. So I think that was part of my journey of growing up, being different, almost leaving the fold. But in leaving the fold, I believe I became so much more. But later on, when I became an entrepreneur, then I think my father was immensely proud of my husband and I and what we achieved. I think because he knew what it took. He understood the journey. He understood the journey. Yeah. That's a fascinating question. Because what I battled at home was an eating disorder. And I did a lot of emotional eating, and I did yo-yo dieting for a lot of my life. And I had to look back at where that came from. And it came from growing up in a very turbulent home, where my father was an amazing, charismatic, visionary, remarkable man, but he battled severe bipolar. And so he would threaten to drive over Solari's Pass quite regularly. And we would just go numb. And my brother and my sister were both incredibly sporty. So they buried and found themselves in sport. But I was a lonely, complex, introverted child. And I swallowed my pain with food. And I sensed my mother's sadness in my soul. And so I grew up with a deep sense of not being good enough. And my whole life's journey has been finding my good enoughness so that I can inspire other people to find their good enoughness. But I've really had to dig deep to understand the patterns that shaped me. So I look at sometimes young people who battle addiction, who are battling self-harming, who bullied at school, who feel not good enough. And I even had coffee recently with a friend whose son was battling. And I've been faced by so many people's friends, relatives, children committing suicide, that for me it's become a driving passion to talk about our not good enoughness, to feel good enough, and to see our unique beauty for what it is. And so I walked a long journey to wholeness, to overcoming all of that, because they often say all addiction is rooted in a sense of not being good enough. And I used to shop a lot because I thought maybe if I found a nice dress, I'd feel better about myself. Or maybe. And it's only when I finally really became whole that I could write this book. And it took 60 years for me to get whole enough to write this book. Yes, I was a political activist on and off in different forms for about 15 years. So I didn't come from a formal business background, but I worked for an organization that later on that was all about deepening democracy in South Africa. So I worked for them for quite a long time. And after that, my husband wanted to start his own business. And so I knew that he was incredibly talented. He battled dyslexia at school, so he was another case of really feeling often not good enough at school, and now he is just technically brilliant at everything he does. He's quite extraordinary. And so I kind of felt there was this yearning in his heart to be more. And I think because I'd been brought up in an entrepreneurial home, I sensed that. And so I wanted to do whatever I could to support him. So it was a bit terrifying in the beginning. He was working part-time and I was working part-time while we quietly started this little company on a shed in a field in Amalgam in downtown Joburg, where there were previously broken cars. So I think that it came from almost seeing him wanting to be more, and and myself wanting to support him to be more. I didn't know it would change my life. I didn't know it would be my becoming. I didn't know it would be my evolution. And I didn't know it would be my teacher and my lessons in such a deep level. I also didn't know it was going to be such a roller coaster ride, because it was. But therein were the lessons, and sometimes the hardest lessons you have are the most important ones. Some of the challenges we face are just when you think, the life of an entrepreneur is just when you think you're having a week or two of smooth sailing, some other challenge erupts out of the blue. And I think it's learning to surf the waves and not get buried and fall off the board and get back in, even if the water is freezing and the waves are crashing over you and you don't know whether you're going to even get out of it alive. Sometimes it feels that dire. But you just put one foot in front of the other in the faith that somehow this is the journey that you were meant to walk. So we did have an extreme challenge halfway through the company's evolution. After 12 years, after we'd won many awards and became established as a company, we'd been featured on TV, we'd been on the radio, we'd been on entrepreneurial magazines, and then we discovered that we were the victim of a massive internal fraud, and we had to navigate that, and we were broken. As two entrepreneurs, we were emotionally broken. We still had money in the bank because we'd always been so careful in how we'd navigated ourselves. We'd always lived very simply, not spent a lot of money. Everything went into the company. But at that point, we were on our knees emotionally. And whenever I have a tough time with anything, it was a tough time last week, I think I got through that. We got through that. And that builds your steel and your courage. And the steel doesn't come from a hardness. It comes from a soft courage of the heart, knowing that you're not alone in this journey you walk. That's how it feels for me. The projects we do are that we are constantly upgrading our showroom, our brand, everything that our company represents. So we don't get complacent. Because I think when you're always trying to be the best and you use global benchmarking as your international benchmark, you're always striving to be exceptional in everything you do, to provide an exceptional service for people. So that when people say, I've had people write us long emails saying, I've never experienced a company giving service like your company has. And they name the people who they dealt with. And this is a big CEO of a big company, they take the time to write an email that says, I dealt with this one, and every one of your staff was just impeccable. That is my lifetime project. Never being complacent, always there to serve. And I'm there to serve my staff. They're not my staff, they're my colleagues. They're fellow soul travelers. They're family. So for the time that they're with us, they are family. And when they leave and they grow and they find another family or they start their own family, and we love seeing them evolve. So I think, the current projects, but have a look at the future projects. Writing this book made sense of my whole life. It took me 60 years to have the courage to write some of the things I did, which were raw and very vulnerable, and I wrote without armor on. But I think what it did, it saw everything in my life as a gift. The fact that my father battled severe bipolar and was suicidal a lot and very manic episodes gave me a deep compassion and understanding of mental health and the stigma around it and the healing that can be achieved from talking more openly, opening the conversation. So I look back at my life as everything is a gift and everything was a learning. And I also had to look back at my life as forgiving myself for some of the things I was really not proud of, and how I'd let people down unwittingly. And the cost and the implications were that I beat myself up for 30 years for that. And I eventually had to let it go. And I had to take out the second arrow, because the first arrow is what happens to you. But the second arrow is the meaning you attach to it. And when you carry on wounding yourself for the next 30 years. So I wrote the book to make sense of everything. And I hope that in doing that, I've left a legacy of inspiration for others, that their lives matter, that their voices matter, and that we all matter. And that living a life of contribution is so different to living a life of just going through the motions. So my project is a lifetime project. It's living a life of contribution. Inspiring others to tell the untold stories we need to hear. Success to me is not about material things. And I've seen and met a few billionaires who on the face of it all have so much, but there's deep pain in their lives. So for me, success is all about relationships. It's about having deep connections and deep conversations and deep relationships. And I'm honestly surrounded by extraordinary people doing extraordinary things in their lives. That's what makes my life extraordinary, not myself, the people I surround myself with. They inspire me every day to be a better person. I could name you 70 people I'm surrounded by who are all just doing extraordinary things in the world. And so that for me is success, when you are congruent in your body, in your values, in your relationships, in your parenting. But the other side of it is that financial freedom does allow you to live a life of love and contribution. And one cannot underestimate that evolution, because it allows you to step forward into a different realm in the last period of your life, in my case. And if I was still worrying how to pay university fees or how to make it through the month, I wouldn't be able to live this life now. But I don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. I think what ordinary people can do is show extraordinary commitment. Show extraordinary commitment to want to be more. To go and listen to YouTube videos and listen to powerful speakers and soak up other people's wisdom, because it changes something in the chemistry. And I pick up people who are hungry hungry to be. I can sense their chemistry, and it comes from getting up early, and it comes from being steeped in wanting more, to be more. I think it's chemistry. Sometimes when I have a bad day, and I have a day that's a little bit rattling, I have to dig deep to find my next step. So often I've had friends say to me, what do you do where you're such a deep hole you can't see the way out? And I've had many friends in that situation. I've had friends with children in that situation. And I think the first thing you can do that might be helpful, it's not always easy, is to step out of yourself and go and help somebody else who might just need some little piece of love. And even if you take them a flower from your garden or just your time with a cup of coffee, what that does, it takes you out of your head and your stuff, and it gives you some perspective. So that's one form. And the other is to just be in nature for a moment, to go for a walk, meditate, pray. Sit in that silence of knowing that this is a moment and it's not going to be forever. But just to breathe in the faith that you came here for a reason. And it's not easy, and I don't diminish it at all. What people have gone through in the last few years, what people are going through in so many ways, that's why I have such a heartfelt passion to talk about mental health. Because I was on the brink myself once. And I've had many friends and their children have also been on the brink. And so I believe I stayed for a reason. I think in terms of finding one another's purpose, it's finding that small thing that brings you such inner joy and peace and flow when you feel, I was born to do this. And sometimes it's art, and sometimes it's maths, and sometimes it can be different forms. Sometimes it can be creating, sometimes it can be gardening, sometimes it can be selling. Because that's what's in your soul. But I think it's giving yourself permission, and kind permission, not beating yourself up. What's my purpose? What's my purpose? I think sometimes we put so much pressure on young millennials to say, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? And then they feel desperate because they don't see their purpose right away. I spent 50 years finding my purpose. So I would say be kind and feel your way, because it's something that you navigate. It's not an A to B journey. Life is not an A to B journey. None of our lives have ever been A to B journeys. And we've all had to navigate some difficult things. So I think it's leaning into kindness and saying, I'm being part of an unfolding journey. I'm finding my contribution. I'm sensing my way, and that's okay. If you're searching to find a deeper purpose, you can find purpose in the gift of the ordinariness of life. I think so many of us neglect to see the joy in the ordinariness of everything. And it's suddenly when you hear your husband's got cancer and he's been given 3 weeks to live, suddenly the world changes. and we see the extraordinary in the ordinary. I think part of life purpose is seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. What I see happening in the world that makes me happy is a whole revolution of young people who really know they're here to make a difference. And they're not materialistic. And they have such a deep sense of values. I see the world changing and shape-shifting. Despite all the pain, despite all the challenges, I see this emerging youth who really feel it in their hearts that they want to make the world a better place. They're not about cars and houses, they're about contribution. That feeds me. That feeds my soul. I honor them by stepping into contribution. A huge turning point in my life was actually quite recently when I went to a Mind Valley Global Summit, which was a summit on personal development in Tallinn in Estonia. And speaker after speaker spoke about everything in life that we never spoke about at school. Relationships, parenting, entrepreneurship, sensuality, the meaning of life. Literally the meaning of life. It was an immersion for 2 weeks of global speaker after global speaker, several during the day and events at night. And there were 53 countries, 1,000 people from 53 different countries. And the one day, a lady came onto the stage. Her name was Sonia Chiquette. She was 60 years old, in her 60s. And she had on these white tackies and this floral dress. She didn't have a single slide in sight. She didn't mention one of her 27 books that she'd written. And she held the audience spellbound for 3 hours with 2 short breaks. And she spoke about the barking dog in your head. The barking dog that drowns out all your own voice. The barking dog of other people's expectations. The barking dog of who you think you're meant to be. And my husband was in the auditorium with me, and he turned to me and he went like this, because he knew that that barking dog had dominated my entire life up until I was 60 years old. So on the surface of it, I was a relatively successful entrepreneur. I looked like I had it all together. On the surface of it, I'd changed. I'd lost 30 kilograms. I'd become healthy. I'd become a runner. I'd transformed on the outside. But on the inside, the voices in my head were still not good enough. Seminar after seminar after seminar, I was a professional self-development junkie. And Sonia Chiquette said, get off the eternal treadmill of self-development courses and go back and make a difference in the land of your birth or your origin or your living. And 1 week later, after that 2-week business immersion, we were walking in a little town in Croatia, this gorgeous little medieval village with cobbled streets, and it was very arty, and you can see I'm an arty creative. And there was this necklace. I was actually going to wear it today, but I forgot to put it on. And it was the symbol of a barking dog. And on the back of the necklace was an ancient timepiece. It was a shop full of recycled arty things. And I looked at this necklace. And I thought, am I going to spend the rest of my life listening to the barking dog, drowning out any semblance of who I'm meant to be? Or am I going to use the rest of my time on earth to make a difference? And that was a turning point in my life. I think the major keys are commitment, to become confident, and in becoming confident, you open courage. And for me, courage is the foundation of everything. It's what allows you to do great things in the world. But over them all, for me, is faith. It's walking a faith-led journey, that I came here for a reason. And for me, faith symbolizes so much. And it also symbolizes, for me, forgiveness. Forgiveness articulated in trust and hope. That's one element of faith for me. And I walk in faith every day. Otherwise, I'd never have the confidence or the courage. I'd have the commitment. It's my faith that gives me the confidence and the courage. So for me, the 4 major keys to success are commitment, courage, confidence, but all of that for me comes from faith. And that's how I go for gold. So the first book I'd like people to read is my book Belonging, because I wrote it so that other people could feel less alone, so they could feel more part of the human journey. And I wrote it with great vulnerability. And there's a wonderful quote from Brené Brown that I really live by. And it says, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the absence of armor. And I wrote this book without armor on, because I wanted my words to leave the world a better place. And so I think people have been touched by the vulnerable voice. The voice of a woman that finally made sense of her life. And the other book I'd recommend, I mean, there are so many. I try and read a book every 2 weeks, and I do that as a conscious commitment to keeping blogs alive and to keep myself fresh and inspired by other people's wisdom. So another book I think is amazing is Edith Eger. She wrote The Gift and the Choice. And she was a survivor of Auschwitz. And when you read her story, it puts everything in perspective. And my father believed in global education. He sent us to a government school and he said, I'm going to invest in a global education. And he took us to Dachau in Germany, and we spent a whole day at the concentration camp and made an indelible impact on my life. And so that book, everybody knows Viktor Frankl's book, The Meaning of Life. But Edith Eger's book and her outlook on life, when you see her being videoed, she's extraordinary. She's in her 90s now. That's the real meaning of life, when you've faced that level of brutality. And the third book, which is just recent for me and was really so beautiful, is a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. And I didn't realize it until I read it, that I am living Atomic Habits. I literally live its message. I have completely and utterly changed my identity from who I used to be to who I am now. My husband doesn't even recognize his first wife. The inside and the outside. And so for me, Atomic Habits was a beautiful book because it wasn't just how to. It was the why behind the how to. The psychology of habits. The psychology of how we live. And so those 3 books, I would say, are the start of gold, but there's so much gold out there if we're willing to just open our hearts and hear other people's stories. And I love books where I can feel somebody's heart. Those are the books that resonate with me. I wish for your voices to be global. I wish for this show to be so utterly inspirational that people from all over the world see that we have something to offer in leading humanity. Because we've walked a journey, this country. And that's part of the reflection of my book. The journey we've walked as a country, and what are the lessons we are learning and have learned. And so I think gold is unstoppable. I think gold is a messenger of love. I think gold is going to be more than you ever dreamed it could be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to that same old quote that so many people have spoken about, and the famous quote from Marianne Williamson that Nelson Mandela famously quoted. But I want to read it again. Because I always thought it was an amazing quote. But I didn't think it was for me. I just thought it was an amazing quote. But now, that quote embodies the journey of my book. So I want to read it with the person I am now, that finally really believes in the quote, doesn't just read it.
Action!
And whilst I know you might have heard this quote before, I want you to hear it with a deeper resonance of your soul and your why. Because it took so many years for me to start to really believe this quote and to finally start living this quote. Oh, on the glasses. I can do it without the glasses.
Can you?
Bit difficult,
if you can,
but
you're just going to set the light. But
maybe
it
just
might change.
Put your light. Put your.
Yeah, I think it's fine now. Is it?
Look at him when you talk.
No, but she's just going to read and.
No,
I'm just.
It's just that when she do
Okay,
like this.
alright.
Okay. Okay, is that okay now? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it is in all of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, the barking dog I spoke about, our presence automatically liberates others.
Amazing.
But
Thank you so
I've got another one I want to read,
Okay, all right.
which is
All right.
because
Quote
And-
number 2, action.
I'm not going to do quote number 3 because I haven't prepared, but I've already done. Yeah. So I want to read another quote that also, in a way, is the meaning making of my book. And it's from Brené Brown, The Atlas of the Heart. And it reads, "Our emotions and experiences are layers of biology, biography, behavior, and backstory. Every single day, our feelings and experiences show up in our bodies. They're shaped by where we come from and how we were raised. They drive how we show up and each feeling has its own unique backstory. Understanding these emotions and experiences is our life's work.
Amazing.
Because of the bed.
Okay, you take this last one again. Take this one last week.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so the last quote I really love because it's so deeply resonant of my journey of belonging. And it's from Brené Brown, The Atlas of the Heart. And it says, our emotions and experiences are layers of biology, biography, behavior, and backstory. Every single day, our feelings and experiences show up in our bodies. They're shaped by where we come from and how we were raised. They drive how we show up, and each feeling has its own unique backstory. Understanding these emotions and experiences is our life's work.
Please.
So a short inspirational story is that Mind Valley speakers on the global stage inspired me to be something more. They ignited a whisper in my soul. And I came back after Mind Valley, and a friend of mine said to me, "Ali, come, you coming with me to the Speakers Association," because she'd heard me speak at our 20th anniversary of our company. And so I said, okay. And I went there, and I'd recently written a poem called Coming Home. It was inspired by what Sonia Chiquette said on the stage. And Mind Valley published it, the poem called Coming Home. And so I went to the first meeting of the Johannesburg chapter of the Speakers Association. And everybody was so warm and hugging one another. And I felt like I was back at Mind Valley. It was just this warmth, incredible connecting. And I glanced up at the banners on each side of the door. And it said, co-create, amazing, collaborate. And the last hashtag read, come home. Come home. And that's when I came home to speaking and writing to make a difference. I could add in another short segment.
Yes, do.
Is that okay?
Yes.
And after joining the Speakers Association, we had a function here, I think it was a Thursday evening, at our house. And it was a wonderful group of speakers that had really held me up during lockdown, really become part of my inner circle. We grew such deep bonds over 2 years of being in lockdown together. And the one night we had this event here, and there was a wonderful man called Jabulani Zwane. I'd been following him for some time. He's a mindset specialist. And I wasn't even aware he was in that particular group. And I was amazed to see him appear at this event. And I noticed that my husband was talking to him at length. And my husband's quite reserved and quiet. And there he was pouring out his heart to Jabu Zwane. But that's the man he is. And at the end of the evening, I said something like, I'm not really a speaker, it's been wonderful. And I remember saying something like, I'm not really a speaker. And he came to me at the end of the evening. And he stood and he looked into my eyes. And he said, Ali, what's this thing about you not being a speaker? I've heard you speak. And so began a conversation that has never stopped. I think what millennials could really use is the incredible power of this digital world, where we have so much wisdom at our disposal. Wherever did we have an era where you could listen to the most incredibly profound thought leaders from all over the world for free? Load shedding, I know, might be a challenge, but if you can get power, then those voices give you power. So let's relook what power means to become powerful. There's been in my career both inspiration and push. And working with my husband has been the greatest honor. Some people say, how on earth can you work with your husband? I would kill him on the second day, is what I generally get. And he has been the making of me, and I have been the making of him. And it's been an extraordinary privilege walking this journey together. It's been a deepening of our souls, a deepening of our life, a deepening of meaning, deepening of connection, a deepening of belonging. And so my husband has been my rock in my life, especially coming from a turbulent home. He's my calm. He's my solid. He's my gold. But there are many other people who have been my gold along the way. And the reason why I talk about owning my story now, it's not my story. I'm owning all the people that got me here to this point. And the other thing I think in the writing journey is, although my father was this charismatic entrepreneur and a humanitarian, when my mother passed away after battling a long bout of cancer very bravely, something happened the night she passed away. And it was as if there was an exchange between our spirits. And when they finally wheeled her body out of the small cottage where she was staying, I looked in the mirror and my face was blood red. And I hadn't been anywhere near the sun for 3 months. And my face peeled the next week. And I believe that through God's grace, He was giving me a message to live her values. And ever since then, my life changed. What I can say, I used to be excruciatingly shy. I wanted to be invisible. When I was younger, I wanted to change the world, but I wanted to be invisible. So now every time I get an opportunity, sometimes it's nerve-wracking, sometimes the tech goes a little bit scary. But every time I get an opportunity to speak a message of the heart and to inspire somebody else, my message is this: don't wait 60 years to start believing in yourself. Don't wait 60 years to start loving yourself. And don't wait 60 years to start owning your story, because your story could change somebody else's life. My name is Alison Weihe. I'm an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, and a mindset specialist. Catch me on gold. You'll be inspired. My name is Alison Weihe. I'm an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, an author, and a mindset specialist. A woman who's passionate about changing lives. Catch me on gold this week. My name is Alison Weihe. I'm an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, an author, and a mindset coach and specialist. And I love talking about transforming lives. Catch me on gold this week. My name is Alison Weihe. I'm an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, an author, and a mindset specialist. And I love sharing my golden nuggets. So keep watching gold. You'll get gold.
Amazing. Go for gold. Just go for gold.
Go for gold. My name is Alison Weihe. I'm an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, an author, and a mindset and transformation passionate specialist. Keep watching gold with King Nee. You'll get gold. So King Nee, I think my greatest assets are that my husband calls me his 120% wife, because I am passionate about everything I do. People say I'm intense. I think I am intense. I've owned it. The intensity comes from the passion. But it's a quiet passion, often steeped in great vulnerability. To be really raw and really real and really honest. And I think that's what makes people notice me when I speak, because I speak from the heart. And some people have said it's my courage. And I never thought I was a courageous person. But isn't that interesting how your identity can shift when you own your story? And so now I finally own the things I always dismissed. Because owning them gives me the courage to carry on.